and thank you for tuning in to Small Talk with Centers for New Horizons. I'm Erin, your host today, and today we'll be discussing clinical therapy services. And with me, I have Lavita Collins, who's a licensed clinical social worker. So, when most people think of Centers for New Horizons, they think of childcare and employment services. Most people don't know that Centers for New Horizons offers clinical therapy services. At Centers, counseling is viewed as an additional resource or service we provide to the people we serve. Whether it's one on one counseling to assist with coping skills, loss, parenting issues, depression, anxiety, stress management, decision making, or even assessing and evaluating early interventions in our child care facilities. Yes. Centers does that. Our counseling department also provides group counseling workshops on wellness, employability, and violence prevention, of which Ms. Collins will be going on over with us today. In addition, our therapists are available to provide confidential and personalized counseling sessions for individuals, couples, and families. We service individuals from ages 5 to over 55. Every client receives individualized care based upon their goals and their needs. So, Ms. Collins, can you tell us your title and exactly what it is that you do?
Well, I am the clinical manager for Center's clinical department. And so what we do is we provide, like you said, we provide counseling services to Chicago Housing Authority residents. And that's individual therapy, family therapy, group therapy. In addition to that, we do violence prevention efforts, which we do that, like we outreach to the community and try to provide a service so that we are spreading, just spreading the word and getting the community involved around like violence prevention. In addition to that, we do our group services. And so it's group counseling, and we try to get the residents involved by picking topics that we think will interest them. And so we have 8 groups throughout the year, and we do 3 sessions per group. And they're on different topics. And once again, it's for CHA residents, but anyone can come.
Mm-hmm. So, speaking of group topics, can you tell us about an upcoming event that you have?
We do have an upcoming event. It's called Relationship Talk, How to Bring the Best You to the Table. And so basically, it's an open group. So it's for men and women, although we expect that only women will probably show up. And so it's just talking about, being your best self in a relationship. So we'll talk about self-esteem. We'll talk about, what it is you deserve, like your worth. And then also how to look for a good partner in a relationship. Because I think that once you tap into your value and your worth, that's going to change your outlook on who you bring into your life. And so I think it's going to be a good group. It's going to be next week, August 23rd, 24th, and 25th at Lake Park.
Awesome. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact Centers for New Horizons at 4150 South King Drive. Our number is 773-373-5700, okay? And you can follow us on Instagram or Twitter at Centers 2.0. So, Ms. Collins, can you tell us the difference between a social worker and a licensed clinical social worker?
Okay, so a social worker is anyone who goes to graduate school or undergrad and get a BSW, a Bachelor's of Social Work, or Master's in Social Work. But there are 2 credentials that comes out of becoming a social worker. You can become an LSW, which is a licensed social worker. And so you need to graduate from a graduate program, and then you sit for the exam. A licensed clinical social worker is different in that it allows you to practice independently. So say, for instance, you want to have your own private practice and you see clients and you accept, out of pocket, or you want to connect with some of the insurance providers like Blue Cross Blue Shield, then as a licensed clinical social worker, you can do that. You can work independently. You can't do that when you are just a licensed social worker.
Okay. So I learned a lot today. So, you counsel. Is there a difference between what you do and what a psychologist does?
No, I don't think so. So there are several things. You can be a psychologist, you can be a social worker. They're both doing therapy, the curriculum, the school curriculum when they're in graduate school may have been different.
Okay.
So psychologists, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know what their focus is on.
Okay.
However, in social work, the theories are different than what they may teach them in psychology.
Okay.
So it's kind of like the same goal, but it's just different routes to get to the same goal.
Okay.
So essentially we do everything, but like as a licensed clinical social worker, I'm independent. So my theory base is my own.
Okay.
I may use Bowen system theories where someone else may, a psychologist, they may use Sigmund Freud.
Okay.
So we all operate from our own personal theorists. So if you go to a psychologist or if you go to two different licensed clinical social workers, they may have different point of views in how they approach therapy.
Okay.
Because there's so many theories that you can pull from. Some people are generalists and that they practice using like all of the theorists, or some people are very specific. They may say, I'm going to just work on family systems, or some people may just work on, individual therapy.
Okay.
And so it's almost the same, but I just think the theories behind it are different.
That makes a lot of sense. So, most people in our community don't really understand what therapy is. Do you mind explaining that?
Yes, that's a good question too, because there's a lot of stigma around going to therapy. If someone says you need to see a social worker, the first thing people say is, I'm not crazy.
Right.
This is not about being crazy. Therapy is an outlet for you to be able to sit and process your emotions and feelings and thoughts in a non-biased atmosphere. Because you can go to your family for help. It's not the same. Of course, they're going to give you help. They're going to offer you advice. But most people are going to give you their point of view, their perspective, or you may feel like you're being judged. Like, what? Don't do that. Or that's a bad decision. Don't date him. In therapy, that's not what should happen. We're unbiased because most, if not all the times, the answers are within yourself. So we're listening and we are helping you process those like questions that you have and those thoughts. And we're not judging you. We're just helping you get to a point where you can kind of make decisions for yourself. Okay. And so I think that it's healthy for everyone to have a therapist at least once, because we're...
Oh, look. Looks like we have a caller. Caller, are you there? Caller? Go ahead, caller.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. I was wondering if you could tell me, how do you sign up for therapy?
How do you sign up for therapy with Centers for New Horizons?
With Centers for New Horizons? Okay, well, with Centers for New Horizons, it depends. I guess you can tell them both.
Okay, so if you want to, there are different ways to sign up for therapy. You can go to like a community agency and that's in your community and see if they have any therapeutic services, and then you can ask them about that. If you have health insurance, you can go through your health insurance provider. You can call the number that's on the back of your health insurance card, and you can say, I'm interested in seeing a therapist. Can you send me a list of providers that are in my network? Because you want to make sure that you are seeing someone in your network so that you won't have to pay like excess co-pays, or to make sure that the insurance is going to pay for the therapist that you're seeing. With Centers for New Horizons, unfortunately, we are an internal agency, so we only see Chicago Housing Authority, or we only see clients who are in Family Works. And so I get all of my referrals internally, so from the housing specialist. So we don't see people who are outside of that network, unfortunately, but that is something we're working on. We're trying to expand so that we can see clients in the community, because everyone, like I said, as that's what I was saying before we had the call, I think that everyone should have access to a therapist. Everyone should see a therapist at some point in time, because we say in a therapeutic community, you don't want to wait until you're in crisis to look for a therapist.
Right.
Because it's kind of like you have to go through your whole story. You want to take the time to get to know someone. You want to take the time to build a rapport with that person so they already know you. So that once you're in that crisis, you're not having to rehash and start from the beginning.
Well, it looks like we have another caller. Caller, are you there?
Yes. Good evening, ladies. I'm an old timer, but I remember being taught respect and pride. Children these days don't get that. They get they go to the Centers for New Horizons, but if they have no background in knowing what to do, first of all, it's just like they're not taught the right way anymore, and then they have to go to a young lady like up there, and go try and see what's wrong with them. What's wrong with them is they have no pride. What's wrong with them is they have no respect. And that's why you have all the trouble you have out there now. They're not being taught from birth to they go see this young lady up there, the good and the bad, the good and the bad in this great country of ours. So if they could teach more pride and respect, I guess that would go a long way. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your comment, sir. So, why would a person consider therapy?
Well, a person would consider therapy, like I mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
I would just have a therapist. Just think about it as having someone on call for when you are in a crisis situation. Because if you are living, there's going to be a moment in your life when you're going to be in a situation or you're going to have a problem, and you may not necessarily feel comfortable going to your family members. Everyone doesn't feel comfortable confiding because they don't want to be judged or for whatever reason. So I think that everyone should have access to a therapist so that when you are in a crisis, you have someone to go to who is going to be able to help you process your emotions and feelings and thoughts in a non-judgmental environment.
So how would a person consider, or what things should a person consider when trying to decide between group and individual therapy?
Okay, so that's a good question. Coming from a therapeutic point of view, when I think about if I'm going to place someone in individual therapy versus group therapy, I guess it just depends on their needs and why they're coming into therapy. Group therapy we usually use when we, as community support. So say for instance, that's when you have groups like Alcoholics Anonymous or those are called like support groups. Those are good groups to be in because you need the support of other people who are in the same situation, as opposed to if someone is really in a crisis or they're suffering with maybe they're depressed or they're suicidal, that person wouldn't be a good fit for group because they are really not stable enough to be in a group setting. They need to have that individual attention, like that individual one-on-one attention. And so I would work with that person first, and then once they get to a point, then maybe they could, because you can have a group for depression.
Okay.
You can have a group for depression, but you don't want someone who is high risk in a group for depression, because then you could bring other people down.
Yeah,
as
the
well.
dynamics definitely be affected.
Right.
I can understand
So
that.
you want people who are in a group who have at least some healthy coping skills.
Well, it looks like we have another caller. Caller, are you there? Caller?
Hello?
Yes. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I was calling to see how do I sign up for therapy, please.
Okay. Are you a CH? Well, if you are a CHA resident.
So are you in the Family Works program?
I can't really hear you.
Are you in the Family Works program?
No.
Okay. Do you have health insurance?
Yes.
So if you have health insurance, call the number on the back of your card and ask them to send you a list of providers that are in your network. And then when they send you a list of providers in your network, you can just begin to call those providers and see if anyone is accepting new clients. And then if they are, set up an appointment, and then you can just take it from there.
Okay, is that for any type of therapy?
Well, are you talking about your mental health therapy, right?
Right.
Yes, right. So just call the number on the back of your insurance card and ask them to send you a list of providers. And then once they send you the list of providers that are in your network, and preferably in your, zip code, because sometimes people, they don't want to travel too far. And then you can just start calling the therapist on that list and set up an appointment from there.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your information.
You're welcome. Have a nice day.
So, how do you measure success in therapy? I mean, working in the business field, we know about success.
Right.
At the end of the month, if you're in the
Yeah.
black or the red,
Right.
you're
Right.
you're successful.
Yeah.
How does that work in therapy?
That's a good question. So it's not just coming in every week and just talking to someone. It's not what you see on the television where you're like laid out on the couch and you're just talking. In therapy, between the first and third session, what we do is establish goals, because that's the point of coming to therapy. You're trying to, there is something that you want, there's something that you want to accomplish. So we establish goal, and that's called an individual treatment plan, an ITP.
Okay.
And on the individual treatment plans, we have 2 or 3 goals that the client comes up with, of course with the therapist assistance, but it has to be client centered. And what we mean by client centered is, it's not the therapist telling the client, well, these are the goals you should work on.
Okay.
These goals have to come from the client, because if it's not something they want to do, then it's just like anything in life. If it's not the person who wants to work on it themselves, then they're probably not going to be successful. So they have to be goals that are measurable and obtainable. So within, therapy can be between 6 and 12 sessions. So it has to be something where you're actually seeing progress, because you don't want people to get discouraged. If they have some goals that are very far-fetched, like you're in high school and you say, I want to become an NBA player, that's not a really good goal, because that's, you can't see that happen until like 6 years later. So we set up an individual treatment plan, and then we monitor goals. We'll say we'll come back to this goal in about a month and see what progress they made. And then you reevaluate it. Have they met the goal? Do we need to revise it? And we go with there. And then at the end, once you see that the person has accomplished their goals, or if not, for whatever reason, you just go back to the drawing board, decide if you want to continue, or decide if, maybe we need to create some new goals.
Okay.
So that's how we measure success.
So let's just say a person wants to recommend a friend to therapy. For instance, I have, I know someone, and
Okay.
it's kind of a sensitive situation
It is.
because, okay, well, I guess I should tell a story. So, we went out to eat for chicken one night. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and she stayed with me for the weekend. And then I noticed in the morning, I clean all my dishes, take all the trash out. But I noticed in the morning we had leftovers, and I grabbed the wrong bag. And there was Taco Bell stuffed inside of her bag on top of the fried chicken.
Oh, wow.
Which means she had to have gotten up between 2 and 3 in the morning and went and got some Taco Bell, right?
Right.
And so I thought it was a once, in a while thing, but it's actually an every night thing. And I want to say, friend, I really want you to get some, because it's affecting her health in major ways.
Right.
But I suppose it won't feel good coming from a person like me. I don't know. How do you approach it? Especially with women. We're sensitive about how we look and our lifestyle.
Yeah.
What do you suggest?
Well, actually, I think it would feel better coming from someone like you, because you know her and obviously you genuinely care about her, as opposed to a stranger approaching her and saying, you have a problem, you need to get help. That could be cause for like a fight. But if it's coming from someone that you love, I feel like it's always best to address it with that person in private, because sometimes people are ashamed of whatever. And I mean, she may be very aware of it, but it's painful to admit that you have some kind of problem, whether it's with food, whether you're a hoarder and you're hoarding clothes, whether you're an alcoholic. That's painful to admit. And a lot of people are hoping that no one notices it. And so I think the best way to approach a person who you think needs therapy is approach them in private and show that you're genuinely concerned about them. Once again, you're not being judgmental. You're not pointing fingers. You're not blaming. You are genuinely concerned about this person. Hey, I noticed that yada yada yada, that you are getting food in the middle of the night, and I'm concerned about your health. And talk to that person about it. I would definitely have a conversation with them before you start saying therapy, because you don't want to just like, I think you need therapy. They just may need somebody to talk to. They may not even really need therapy, but you want to be very careful about, just saying, well, I think that you need to see a therapist, because once again, that stigma, like, I'm not crazy. And so once you talk to the person and you have all the details and the facts, that's something that you can consider, like, well, what are your options? Like, what are you willing to do? Because once again, that person may be in the pre-contemplation state. They may not even know, like, they have a problem. They may be like, well, I don't even think I have a problem. Like, this is okay. And then what? Because therapy has to be voluntary. It's not something we force upon people.
Oh, it looks like we have a caller. Caller, are you there? Caller, are you there?
Hi, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? I have a question.
Go ahead.
My question is, how do we break the stigma in the Black community about mental health?
That's a good question. How do we break the stigma in the Black community about mental health? I think about talking about it, and not talking about it as if there is this stigma. Being able to support people who are dealing with a mental illness as opposed to keeping these as our family secrets. I think that's the problem. I'm not sure of you, but I have people in my family who everyone knows that something is wrong. So we say that, like, that's the crazy uncle, or that's the crazy auntie, or this person is a little off. And I think that comes from that not knowing really about mental illness. Like, this person may be dealing with something. So once again, having that genuine curiosity about the person and offering support, asking questions like what's wrong, and bringing it to the family table, addressing it with everyone, not just in private, because there's nothing wrong with, having a mental illness. I mean, it's just like a physical. In the community world, we compare having a mental illness to having diabetes. You wouldn't not take insulin, or you would not get help. So if you're depressed, or you think someone is bipolar, or if someone is going through grief, you would address it the same way if they had a physical problem. You would sit down, you would talk about it, with the family. Everyone would be supportive, because the more we talk about it, the more common the language becomes, and the more common the language becomes, people are going to be able to express themselves without feeling like they're being judged, or like they're this person who's going to be pushed to the marginals of society. So I think, like, it's just about communication, talking about the problems.
Well, it looks like we have another caller. Caller, are you there? Caller, are you there? Oh, looks like we lost our caller. Well, so do you think that it's safe to say you don't necessarily have to be ill or sick, or something has to be wrong with you? It's okay to put that out there. You can go see a therapist.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just life is very stressful, and no one can do it alone. And sometimes the people in our lives, they're also stressed out, and they're also going through things. And so sometimes we think, well, no one cares. It's just that they may be overwhelmed with their own problems. So having a therapist is really good. It's a good resource, especially if you have the time. And like I said, if you have health insurance, it's really good, then you have access to one. And hopefully, I know there are some community agencies where therapy is affordable. They do it on a sliding scale. So, if you don't have health insurance, you can pay out of pocket a small copay. But it's not something for when you are only in crisis. It's just to have someone there. So if you need to just come in and just bounce thoughts off of, or you want to process something, you had a rough day at work. That's what therapists are for, not just someone who's crazy, or someone who's in crisis. We see everyone.
Absolutely. Well, I've used a therapist before, but it was for decision making when I decided to move here.
Yeah.
It was a tough time. In your 20s, you do what you're conditioned to do. And then when you get to your 30s, you do what you want to do. So, I began not to sleep because I really wanted to do something different.
Yes.
I did exactly what my great-grandmother, grandmother, and myself, we all, 4 generations went to the same school, pledged the same sorority, and I just, got prepared to be tenured at the college I worked at in my 20s. It just was what it was. So to break this comfort.
That family cycle,
Yeah, I was so afraid of disappointing. Yes. My mother, my family, and just doing something different. Yes. So, was it ill? I just,
So how did that experience work out for you?
Well, my mother was not disappointed. Nobody was.
Right.
It worked out just fine.
Yeah.
I moved here, didn't have any issues. It was kind of hard at first, but it worked out.
Good.
And she found a man. So it was a good thing. Maybe I needed to move away. But anyhow. Well, thank you. Until the next horizon, you guys.
Bye.